Well, we'll go. It's looks like it's 7 o'clock. We'll go ahead and bring the meeting to order, the Raymore City Council work session for Monday, April the 2nd. We have a couple of items on our agenda tonight, which are actually reports. We have a quarterly report from the Communications Department, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Fearborn.
Thank you, sir, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Icky to make the communications report this evening. That'll be followed, as you said, by the economic development report, and then a fairly robust item relative to the executive session this evening.
Thank you, sir. Wanted to start tonight's report really at the back of the report, and then we'll kind of move forward just because I know everyone's already been kind of thumbing through the packet that you have in front of you. This was one of the big projects that we undertook, really started last year, finally got all the pieces together this year, and I know Mr. Tapp has been using this very effectively in the Economic Development Department. But the packet that you have in front of you is a folder that we put together in the Communications Department. And inside there is a really informative booklet that highlights and shows a lot of the kind of the individual highlights, the specifications of some of the economic development areas that Mr. Tapp has been, selling to some of our interested folks who want to come to Raymore. This really serves a great example, and what I want to start this week, or this quarter's report on, is it shows one of the many different projects that maybe our residents or members of the council may not necessarily see. So much of what we do in the Communications Department, our main audience is the public, our residents. We really gear a lot of our email programs, our social media, the media, our press releases, and information we put on their website. Our general audience is, folks who live here in our community. And so wanted to get in front of you a piece that, those residents may not see on a regular basis. This is a tool that economic development is able to put in front of developers, whether they're retail developers, light industrial developers. So it has been a very valuable tool for Mr. Tapp. But like I said, it's something that you may not necessarily see sitting in the lobby or on a magazine rack, much like you would the review or the maps or some of the other items. And so feel free to take a look through there. And if you have any questions on the product itself or anything that it's being used for, definitely would be happy to answer any questions, as I'm sure Mr. Tapp would as well. So the past month, past 3 months, we've actually been very busy in the Communications Department. We've continued our on-the-ground support of the Finance Department and the utility clerks for a lot of the on-the-ground support for our weekly trash service. We are continuing to provide customer service support, continuing to provide support through Jim's Disposal, especially as we have the upcoming bulky item pickup, providing information to the public about what is acceptable during those two events, as well as other items that can be picked up at the curb or not picked up at the curb. At the same time, we're also continuing work directly with Google Fiber and Comcast as they work through several neighborhoods to expand their fiber network, really trying to push out the message both to our residents as well as to the contractors working in those areas that, though they are doing work in those areas, those contractors trying to keep them kind of what's the nicest word I can use to ensure that they are still responsible for the yard remediation, and they are responsible for keeping our customers and our residents informed of the work that they're doing. So much of their work changes on a day-to-day basis because of the weather or just kind of where their work takes them, that it's important that we know from the Communications Department that those folks working on the ground are continuing to let our residents know what's going on. Finally, we're also in the Arts Commission putting the final touches on the mural that's going to be going in at Memorial Park. Really excited to see the work from Jacob Duncan, and I think the Arts Commission also will be giving their final approval to that on April 10th, their next meeting this month, provided that we have, I know we'll have the artists there, and then any other comments. I know we've been also working with the Historical Society to provide input as well as some other comments from them, and looking forward to a partnership with them in the future, and so stay tuned on that front. Wanted to move forward to our kind of our reporting and a lot of the numbers from the last 3 months of January, February, and March. Didn't have any direct mail pieces. The review doesn't go out until May, and so we won't really see any of the impact of that publication until the next quarter. Didn't also do any online advertising or provide any online ads either on the website or through Facebook. But what I also wanted to, or what I'd like to highlight this through this report is our email program. I know I've spoken before about the success of the email program and also how effective it is at getting residents to click through the emails and actually go to our website. Wanted to also let you know that for the second year in a row, Constant Contact has named the City of Raymor's program an all-star program. In order to earn that designation, we have to maintain a higher than average industry standard of email opens as well as email click-throughs. And I'll talk about the specific numbers that we have. But because this was our second year earning the All-Star designation, we had to show improvement from our previous year. So we weren't able to just show them that we, yes, once again had a 47 to 50% open rate. We had to show that we were improving that over the last 365 days. And so as you can see, in just the first quarter of 2018, we saw just a slight decrease in the number of emails sent. And to kind of walk you through what you're looking at in these different columns, I've broken out each individual month of January, February, March. That fourth column is a comparison either of all of the numbers added together or all the averages from the last quarter. And then that final column on the far right-hand side shows you either the gains or the decreases from quarter to quarter. And so we really are able to now begin tracking the growth of the email program, growth of our Facebook program, as well as our website stats and other information that I think are really important and help us in the communications department, helps us put together an even better program moving forward from quarter to quarter. So as you saw, we have sent out roughly 19,500 emails just in the first quarter alone, and that's just slightly down. To give you some perspective on that number and what informs that number, we have about 3,500 individuals enrolled in the email program. We also have about 24 different lists that folks can sign up for, so even though someone may sign up for 5, 6, 7 different lists, that still counts as only one enrollee. And so it's really nice to see that out of those 3,500 enrollees, we're beginning to see that out of the, say, 20,000 emails we're sending, we are still reaching a near 50% email open rate. If you remember from the first time we presented this information, most government agencies see about a 10% open rate with about a 1% click-through rate. And it's really important, especially for us as we're putting out some of our messaging, that we continue to see this incredibly high open rate. Our residents are engaged in the information that we're putting out there. They are interacting with it, and I feel, as you see kind of later on in the information and the data, they're gaining information and they're getting to the places on the website or on our social media page to inform them about things that are going on. As we move further down through the chart, we can see through our website visits, we did have kind of a, I would consider it a significant drop from 4,800, 600 visits, or 48,000 visits, 600 to 43. A lot of this had to do with at the end of the fourth quarter, we saw an increase in website visits specifically because we were driving people to the website through the Review magazine, which had come out at the end of December, as well as taking out a number of ads driving people to the website because of the new trash service. And so there was a good number of folks going to the website specifically for that information. The other item I wanted to note was our top 5 traffic referrals. We are seeing Google is once again the #1 referral site sending folks to our website. The Facebook desktop application, so if you access Facebook from your computer, your laptop, your desktop or laptop, that's just kind of the Facebook standard program. Facebook mobile is if you access it through your phone or your iPad. The Facebook desktop application has been completely removed from our top 5. That is significant, at least to me, and it informs to me that the information we put out there needs to be able to consistently fit in a mobile application. So whether we're buying ads, whether we're putting out infographics about events that are coming up, or just designing something to look good on a phone. It looks very different on something handheld than what it does on, say, like a 17 or an 18-inch monitor sitting at your desktop. And so the fact that we see Facebook Mobile is now solidly number 3 and the desktop app has completely fallen out of the top 5, we can really focus on mobile applications. For the keywords, we saw trash was once again dominated our search function on the website. We also begin to see folks are looking for things like Centerview, starting to look for our snow plan, as well as, as we saw in February, a number of folks looking for business licenses as I believe at the end of January, beginning of February is when our city clerk began notifying some of our businesses that they needed to be getting their business license renewed. So it's nice to see they were coming to our website and searching for those items. Wanted to then jump down to the red section of our YouTube area. This one we don't have a whole lot of control over just because our YouTube channel is really dominated by the meetings such as tonight that we record, place on the YouTube channel. And so although we did see a decrease in the number of videos posted there as well as a decrease in the number of views, we really believe that is mostly because we had fewer meetings during this first quarter. And so although we see a drop in a lot of those areas, had a lot to do with just we weren't having as many meetings. However, as we've looked at some of this data and as we've kind of spoken just internally, one thing we would like to start doing is more green content or more original content that we would be putting out on our YouTube page that wouldn't just be meeting videos, but would be informational pieces that we could broadcast through the YouTube page. We've discovered recently that Google Fiber, while they have been broadcasting our meetings, such as the live meetings, it's not just limited to the Raymore service area. Anyone who has Google Fiber in the Kansas City region can tune in to our government channel, which we did not know originally when they provided us the service and when they connected us to the live to the hardware here that allows us to broadcast. And so since we've recently made that discovery, we've decided we have now a much wider audience that we can be putting out more information. And so we really want to leverage that audience and put out some information that we think would be useful to a more regional audience and not just an internal audience. Over on the next page, we have our Facebook stats. We saw some good growth throughout the entire quarter on all of our pages. What we also did notice, though, is we had fewer posts throughout this first quarter, which also just led to lower engagement. Our emergency management page saw quite a bit of growth and engagement. This had to do with the 3 winter weather events. We primarily use the emergency management page for notifying residents of severe weather, making sure that they are aware to slow down, give the plows plenty of room, and other information when it comes to those severe weather opportunities. And so we saw some growth there. The new area I wanted to highlight, though, was our Arts Commission Facebook page. This just launched right at the end of 2017, and we saw some great engagement in 2018. The 2 family art days, I know 2 family art days, a paint and sip, and a pop art your pet. All 4 events we've exclusively advertised through the Facebook page for the Arts Commission. All 4 events have been sellout events. And so I think we see some folks getting really engaged there. Have already really covered and highlighted the email program, or at least the kind of the high level areas. Each of these individual, or the 3 pages, are each of the different months, January, February, and March, of all of the emails we sent. And so you can see of the 20,000 emails that we send a good number of different emails that include everything from the agenda for the city council meetings to legal notices to the Parks and Recreation's monthly newsletter, reminders of deadlines that are coming up out of the Parks and Recreation Department, as well as notifications for future events such as Summer Scene. As we did our call for artists. Moving into our traditional media, although we had a question in our last quarter about including more of the regional news items, and so we really placed any instance in which the city of Raymore was mentioned or in which any instance in which the city would have been involved. And so this included some items right at the beginning of the year, some stories that came through the police department. We went ahead and tracked them here as well. And so you get kind of a full accounting of all of the instances where the city of Raymore may have been mentioned in the news, either through one of the regional broadcast TV stations, the Kansas City Star, or our 3 local newspapers that cover the city of Raymore. And so if you have any questions about those, we'd be happy to take those as well. And then finally in the report, just provided some very simple samples of some design work that Melissa McGee had done for some projects. Summer Scene, as you know, is coming up. We have some great opportunities for artists to showcase their artwork as well as sell their artwork, and so we had the call for artists here recently, and as well as the design work for the event itself. The Summer Scene event also is the kind of the final day of creation, first day of our pop art project display, where we invite folks to participate in decorating the Adirondack chairs and putting those on display. And so Melissa, I think, has done a great job of putting together a neat visual element of those Adirondack chairs and also inviting folks to participate in Summer Scene. Have been also working hand in hand with the police department to put together a recruitment flyer and strategy to help them as they go speak with some of the academies here in the area, as well as try to recruit some new officers for the police department. And then that last item on there is the Pop Art Your Pet fundraiser that was sold out that I had mentioned. You may be wondering why there is a receipt in your packet. Wanted to provide this as an example of, we sometimes receive questions of where else can we put the logo? Where can we really use the branding? And wanted to use this as a good example of we really use it as much as we can and everywhere. And so even in areas as simple as a receipt that someone may receive through the municipal court is an area where we're able to provide our branding and some of our logo so that we are ensuring that we're using it effectively and in appropriate areas. And then finally you have, and this is the flyer that you have in your packet there. This is the area, or the flyer that we've been working with economic development on, and really look forward to providing more tools to Matt and his folks, and helping him with some of the connections that he makes. Any questions that you have about the report or the information that we have provided? I know it is a lot, especially on those spreadsheets, but it is something that helps inform myself and Melissa as we make decisions on what we put out to the public as well as what we try to convey to the council.
Mr. Holman.
Thank you, sir. Mike, great report. You guys are obviously staying very busy and have become an indispensable part of the city. My question is, if you have an opinion on or any knowledge of the effectiveness of a tactic that the Raymore Peculiar School District uses, and that is when they send out an email, there's an embedded audio message within that. You click on it, and the person tells you, usually it's Mr. Principal Miller or Dr. Monsis telling you, and that really gets your attention. You don't get a chance to gloss over that when you do. If you do click on it, you're getting someone talking to you, and it's really the only outlet that I've dealt with that uses that tactic. I didn't know if you knew much about it or if you thought it had value, and something that we really wanted to make sure got out to our residents might be something we look at.
Absolutely. Visually, I know our email program, we have the ability and have in the past embedded videos. And so embedding something like a sound clip would be just as simple as placing the link, and if there was anything that we would want to specifically highlight, absolutely.
Mr. Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was curious on your numbers. Do you generate a report to get this, or is this something that you can pull up anytime if you have an event and you post something? Can you immediately see how the response is, or how quick can you get these numbers like this?
So for the traditional media, this we do just on a weekly basis. And so we'll go through all the newspapers and see where we've popped up. Google provides a great resource where anytime City of Raymore is mentioned, it sends me an email. And so we're able to kind of filter through those and add those to the report. As for the spreadsheet, typically I keep that on a monthly basis, and I just have to go to the different sources, whether it's our website through Google Analytics, Facebook Insights, or our constant contact insights and just manually pull those numbers. And so we do that, but having it in that spreadsheet form each month allows us to sit down and really analyze how we've done that month, if we're getting the message out we want to, because anecdotally, it's always nice to hear that people are hearing about the events that we have going on, and we can see registrations going up, say, in a parks department, but it's nice to be able to have those numbers to show, 50% of the 20,000 emails we're sending are being opened, and they're being interacted with. And so we are doing something effective, at least in that instance.
Mr. Burke, sure.
Mr. Mayor, to follow up on that, is there, I know there's a situation like this, like on a TiVo, where it goes into their ratings, but it's only within a certain time period. So like last week when I was on spring break, I didn't open the police blotter, but I have it. I'm going to open it and read it at some point. Will that eventually get put into your data if somebody saves it and then they open it maybe 2 or 3 weeks later?
We receive from Constant Contact 3 different reports. So as soon as it gets emailed, we get a report that generated almost as soon as it hits inboxes that say, here's the number of folks that either immediately opened it, or here's the number of folks who have away messages up that didn't receive it at all, or it just totally bounced and it was just a bad email address. 2 days later, we receive another report that's kind of an initial, here's how many people have opened up the email. After about 2 or 3 days, those numbers drop off to about 0. So that's a good snapshot. And then at the end of the week, or after about 7 days, we do the final report. And that's where we pull these numbers, is at the end of the week.
Thanks.
Anyone else? Yeah, Mr. Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for adding in the regional information with regard to information that Raymore pops up on. You made earlier in your presentation, which is excellent, by the way, comments regarding adding our logo on different items and finding where areas we can add that on. I know we had a rebranding funding for that, but are we waiting until existing stocks of things that are potentially looking to add logos are depleted before we order new things, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
That was the answer I was looking for.
And the reasons, for example, the municipal court, they had gotten to the end of their supply of these items, and so we had the opportunity to place the logo on the new set.
And then one last question. You may have said it before, not tonight, but just in general regarding the Arts Commission. Is artists restricted to or limited to, is a better term, Raymore citizens, or can other artists throughout the area who want to participate in any of these events and or on the commission, do they have to be a resident, particularly the commission?
For members of the commission, they must be residents.
Okay.
And 4 of the seats are ward-specific.
Okay.
For artists to participate, whether it's through Summer Scene, through our Chamber Gallery program, or any of the other programs, while we give preference to our Raymore residents, our Raymore artists, we certainly are open to any and all. Summer Scene's a great example where we have folks coming from all over the region. We had folks out of, I want to say, an artist out of Hays, Kansas. This year we have an artist coming up from Arkansas to display at the event.
Okay, perfect. I've had questions about those wanting to participate in various gallery or Summer Scene. I just wanted to make sure get clarity on that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? If not, thank you, Michael. Appreciate it. And next up to Pat.
And that collection of data really is digital and gets down to the basis levels of, if you ever walk in and you see Miss Bratton at the front desk with a pair of scissors, she's actually cutting out newspaper articles for Mr. Icky to save those for time eternal. So, thank you, Mike. Next up is the quarterly economic development report, so I'll turn it over to Mr. Tapp.
Yes, good evening. Yes, good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council, Mr. Feuerborn. First and foremost, I want to thank you all for the invitation to come every quarter and present the activities of the Economic Development Department for Raymore, as it's a great opportunity to update you all on the happenings. And so I was sitting back there thinking long and hard, about 15, 20 minutes while Mr. Icky was talking, on how to best summarize the first quarter of 2018. And the key phrase that kept popping in my head was walk the walk. Up to this point, I've done a lot of talking, which is a good base, good foundation, both with outside individuals and organizations and internally with each of you all in this group collectively at times. But now that talk has converted into walk. I'm excited to share with you all, I counted at least 8 very large-scale, significant impact projects that are in the works with specific developers that are ground-changing or ground-shattering and definitely huge impact projects. So there's a lot to go over, and I promised Mr. Feuerborn I would not spend more than 15 minutes, to which I will honor as best I can, because I'm sure there are lots of questions. But first things first is the business attraction side, and that's where I'll spend most of my time tonight. Know that there are a number of activities within the business retention expansion, as well as workforce development and what I call the admin or administration side of the department, which I won't go into detail unless I'm definitely asked questions, which I'm happy to do so. The first project I'm excited to discuss is what's called Tract 1 at the Good Ranch, or mainly the retail tract of about 140 plus acres on the north side of North Cass as you exit off of I-49. And luckily, Mr. Icky gave you the site's tour book, which is an invaluable tool that I use both digitally and hard copy. So you get to see how I give tours to developers and retailers and other prospective folks, because it does a really good job from number of tour stop 1 to tour stop, I think, 18, as to the drive through Raymore. But to speak to tract number 1, we have been continuing our conversations with a regional developer, and I probably should backtrack a little bit. This is kind of a tightrope in the sense of I want to give you as much information, detail as I can, and to the public out there and the audience out there without giving away too much, because that's the nature of our business is in the business attraction and the sales side. We want to be careful about the details we give out, but I'm going to do my very best. So up to this point, we've been working with a regional developer that has a lot of experience in the retail side of things, and they put an option down on about 75, 80 acres, mainly the south portion of Tract 1, or closest to North Cass. And I've had a couple of one of those catalyst sparks type of projects. And I've repeatedly told you guys that retail follows rooftops, not the other way around. So it's going to be a little challenging to get bigger box retail down there without having rooftops on all 4 sides, on the Belton side and the other sides of the site. However, we have been working on those sparks. Now we have a very, very large spark. You know, in the cartoons, it'd be the huge barrels of TNT kind of spark. We're really excited about that. It could be upwards of 1 million square feet of retail. It is a tremendous project. Hopefully, we'll learn more as the weeks progress. And overall, I'm really hoping, and my intent is in the second quarter summary, announcing the details of these projects and say, okay, we now know that so-and-so signed this real estate option. We can say who it is and what we're pursuing. So with that, that is a huge mixed-use retail, perhaps office, multifamily. It kind of depends on what the developer wants to do, and other uses. I wish I could share more, but I can't. But that is incredibly exciting, probably the biggest impact project. Next on the list is the Raymore Gateway, which is the general term for the city-initiated TIF. If you might recall, members of the City Council last year, that we pursued a city-initiated TIF, got one response, came back that they could not pursue that project because they had to pursue other projects. But now, we, myself, the city, we've solidified one major anchor tenant user within there. It's 85,000 square feet. Let me see what I shared with you. An entertainment user. So that has multi-facets. It's not just one type of entertainment. It's got all different types. Great operator, business that we're attracting to the Gateway. So again, 85,000 square feet is no small building, to say the least. To give you an example, new movie theaters anywhere from 45 to 50,000 square feet, somewhere around there. So a very large rooftop. And we're also talking to one principal developer who's very interested, and the goal here is to try and master plan the entire site as best we can. There's multiple property owners. There's a number of hurdles with that site, but it is a great site. It's on the AM side, or the morning peak traffic flow. So, for instance, the old Ryan site is an invaluable AM hard corner on a signalized traffic intersection. So, pretty exciting things to happen there. Hopefully we have more to report on the second quarter. And tied to that, my goal between the first two projects is the mayor and I are planning on going to Las Vegas. We are going to Las Vegas, ICSC Recon. And we're now moving beyond just talking to developers, trying to get that first cog to fall into place. But now we can talk to retailers and say, we've got these two significant projects. We think that you'd be a valuable addition to it. So pretty exciting with that. The third project is Willow Wind Square, and I actually had a couple meetings last week there and have noticed some deferred maintenance, some other issues that have really multiplied there, and we have a developer who is very interested and looking at what they could potentially do on that site. It is an excellent site as well because that is the entry point to Creekmore. And if any site in Raymore screams for incentives to redevelop, it is the Willow Wind Square, TIF and SID, or tax increment financing, and then SID, so Community Improvement District, sales tax, and that would be a full, complete redevelopment of that site. So we're pretty excited to see what that developer turns up, and we'll kind of pursue it further from there. Then I'll move on from retail and talk about a few mixed-use projects, one of which is a mere feet from where we're sitting, and that is the city-owned lots in the municipal circle, perhaps also spilling over into some of the other privately held property on the municipal circle. We've been talking to a couple developers. One specializes in commercial, the other specializes in luxury-level multifamily, and we've been discussing a mixed-use project on the municipal circle with, again, ground floor commercial and then luxury multifamily above. And the key on that one is the commercial space. We've got to help the developer find tenants to fill up the space, to make it a go. And we're currently pursuing that from one main viewpoint or perspective, which is our fellow community partners of Raymore and the area, to see if they have any needs for some new space and some new programming from their end. So again, I wish I could tell you more, but we can't at this stage. Just know that it's a very exciting project. To be honest with you, my personal perspective, it's the most exciting project because I loved mixed use and I love the urban look that could potentially bring. The fifth site is the Kirby site, and that name may ring a bell, it may not. It's one of those names that most people won't recognize, but if you turn to a page, I don't remember what page it is, but the Kirby site is on the site's tour book. That's about the 14 plus or minus acres east of Sunset Lane from Constantino's Price Chopper anchored commercial site. So that is incredibly exciting because on the very north end, we have a user looking to locate their flagship location or site, about 40,000 square feet, medical professional office, significant employment impact, as well as customers coming in and out. So with that site, without showing you the graphic of it, that's the north side. The mid part will probably be some type of multi-tenant commercial, much like what Eric Collins and Lonnie Branson, those folks did on their multi-tenant commercial site by Country Club Bank. And then on the front, I've convinced them to set aside the hard corner or the corner 58 and Sunset, as well as some additional, well, where the attorneys currently rest, their house, for future retail commercial. So whether it's gas station, C-store, which is a perfect spot for that, or another retail user, I'm sure they'll salivate at that site if and when the north and then the middle part happens. And then moving away from mixed use, we've got project number 6, which I need to come up with some creative names like our friends at Kansas City Area Development Council do, like Project Argonne and whatever else the terms they use. I'll make sure to try and do that next time. But on the industrial front, the biggest site is the Good Ranch, going back down to the Good Ranch on North Cass Parkway and I-49, and what I term the North Cass Business Park. And that is the largest tract of ground that currently is zoned industrial. And I'm incredibly excited to say that one prominent, very large developer that's not just in Kansas City, but across the nation probably, is very interested and has expensed a number of monies investigating and doing the due diligence of that site. So we are really, really close to hopefully them putting a real estate option down on a piece or all of the Good Ranch North Cass Business Park. And it's my intent and real hope that the second quarter I can tell you who that is, maybe bring them in sometime. And now the rubber really meets the road where we've got to fill up those buildings. They have a couple of concepts right now. One, which would be one super large building. The other is multiple buildings of various size, but it's an incredibly exciting project, a huge impact, huge employment boost to the area. So that's a very, very large project. And then moving towards the residential side, I know that when we did our tour of different sites throughout the metro area, and we saw the luxury level multifamily, the city council was highly intrigued and motivated to see how we can get that to our community. So we've got a couple of projects that are really, really, really close. One of which a developer has already put an option down on the land behind Sam's Club, which is project area number 4 in Raymore Galleria terms, but the property generally behind Office Depot and Sam's Club. And they're looking at doing about 262 units. I believe 5 buildings, yes, 4 non-age restricted buildings of luxury level multifamily. Most are 3 stories, if not all are 3 stories from what I recall. And then 1 building towards the east end or the back end, where it's a larger age restricted or more of like a 55 plus independent living, very active senior housing. We've met with the developer multiple times and actually linked up a prospective, really exciting commercial user for the front piece of the property up along Dean Avenue. So a very exciting project. They should submit their incentive request in a matter of a week or 2, and then we'll process it from there. And then one other one is actually kind of hot off the press. We just met with the developer today on the Fox Ridge Drive multifamily site, which is about the 20 acres south of the 40-acre commercial tract on the southwest corner of 58 and Fox Ridge, so on the other corner from CVS. And they are very motivated, excited. They want to put the pedal to the metal. So you'll learn a lot more about that. But they're talking around 360 units of luxury level multifamily. So yeah, the multifamily is very strong for Raymore. Probably chiefly because we have a lot of large major employers in the area that will be a strong supply source for those units. So I know I said I'd focus on business attraction, and I'm happy to talk about BRE, or business retention expansion. I really wish I could have gotten more interviews or reports on that, but I've been so busy on attraction. And then workforce development, we've got a few things happening. So that's it for the formal presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions that the City Council may have.
Reg?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Excellent brief, Mr. Tapp. I appreciate it. Thank you. Statement, comment, not necessarily a question, but I think the two are interconnected. Excited about all the opportunities. It's what you can discuss. Excellent with regard to the multifamily and all the businesses along the 58 and the Dean with the Cass Parkway. But hearing all the potential units that are going in with the multifamily, with all the business attraction that's getting to occur in the next 5 years, 10 years possibly, but 5 years being a little conservative, with the impact that's going to have on our roadways and expansion and public transportation, and seeing how we're already tight as it is in certain areas and certain frustration points. And it's more of a comment with regard to is our public works also in kind discussing options and with Missouri Department of Transportation regionally to also develop and be working towards this expansion, and what can we do there to alleviate potential congestion points now with what we have and what potentially we'll have if we don't make any moves towards that.
A significant number of these projects, as I'm sure the council is aware, will require incentive packages which will put them into incentive districts, which will mean that they have to pay the excise tax, which is an outstanding source of funding for exactly what you're talking about, whether it be expanded roadways, new roadways, or maintenance on our existing roadways. And with the size of some of these projects, we'll be talking about dollars that are sustainable. And we're constantly in contact with MoDOT. If anybody had to use the 58 bridge today, you've noticed that the winter put what I consider to be a dagger into that thing. So we'd love to get MoDOT out there in the next 4 or 5 days, especially when they're going to have to get out there and patch to see what a bottleneck congestion point that is when they're trying to do any source of maintenance on it whatsoever. My son and I were actually pulling on to it yesterday, and he made the comment, when are they going to do something about this? And I said, we're working with MoDOT. We've actually had more meetings with MoDOT about a bridge that's located in Belton than Belton has. It's that significant to this type of growth to us. And my son responded that he wasn't actually talking about the bridge, he was talking about the number of homeless people that are always standing around the corner.
There's only two. Thanks, Ray. And to that point, would we receive some sort of a similar quarterly report from the Public Works on matters such as that? The discussions and projects we have with regard to roads, 291, 58, interchange, just in general, to kind of give the council a kind of update on whether that, because of the impacts it has on economic development, would it be better served in a executive session, if that's possible? Mr. Zerr can let us know. But some level of brief from that department on what we're doing and future plans and existing discussions regarding our infrastructure.
As a follow-on to that, Jim, let me ask, I know we were talking about a transportation study as well with MoDOT. Is that underway right now?
The transportation study is a requirement of our agreement with Belton, but what we wanted to do was get the Cadence property as it currently exists completely tenanted up so that they have, and then if something is going to happen on the north side, we want at least that picture for whoever conducts the study, sir, to be able to actually have hard counts.
Would that tie into what Mr. Townsend was asking with regard to our preparations?
It'll certainly be one very significant report that would come with that. And I think what you're asking for is a much higher level, directly addressed to ED report from Public Works, which we can make as a sub-report to this one quarterly, that would address those higher level issues, because of course Mr. Krask gives a monthly report where he includes kind of the in the weeds stuff. I think you're looking for a higher level with this that's directly related to ED.
Yes, yes.
We can do both those.
Mr. Berenson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Tapp, excellent presentation. Thank you for doing this. 2 points I'd like to make. So by looking at this and listening to your presentation, it sounds like 2018, 19, maybe a little bit of 20, we're going to see more economic development, commercial development, and residential in the next few years than we've seen over a span of 8-10 years possibly. The second thing I have is there anything, it looks like we're doing really well here with everything, but are there any barriers that you're seeing, that you're having any issues with, that either city staff or the council can help you with? Any common denominators?
Other than the mayor.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to mention the mayor and how challenging it can be, but no. And I know that Councilmember Holman had brought that up last time. Did you want to answer that? Because I don't really want to say too much. If Mr. Feuerborn can fill it in.
The first barrier is the recognition that we have a number of economic development partners on our side of the table who who we have to address their very real and very powerful concerns, especially as it relates to incentive packages. The second barrier we'll be discussing with you in just a few minutes in executive session. But we have to recognize that a lot of what we're proposing here, and certainly we know the council is open to it. Our citizen surveys show that our citizens are open to incentives. In fact, they strongly support incentives, the direction that those incentives take, and the cautions that I would put on as far as we need to do it, but we need to do it with a method and a plan and with a conservative heart, if you will, towards it, while at the same time being creative in what we can still make offerings of to let these people know that we are very, very, very open to having them in here and doing whatever we can while still being financially responsible to get them here. Because Mr. Tapp is absolutely correct. All of these people are right there in wanting to come here. And then, again, executive session will be the teller here.
Yeah, Mr. Burke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Tapp, is there any consideration, I'm sure there is, but I have to ask, with the school district, let's say one of 3 or 4 projects, residential projects goes in, is there any initial estimates of what it will do to the number of students that we have in our district? Because they just decided to consolidate everything into one building as opposed to a plan they had 10 years ago to build 2 high schools. And being that I live there every day, it's interesting.
Yes, sir. And this is not blowing smoke at all. Mr. Fearborn and I, the mayor, we all firmly believe that the school district is a huge community partner with us. And we would do everything we can to be a partner with them. So we are always vigilant and aware of potential impacts to the school district every step of the way. As a matter of fact, I try to meet with Dr. Monsis and or a portion of his administration staff every quarter-ish to kind of catch him up on things and kind of be ahead of some things. So we definitely need to sit down and have some conversations with them. But I'll just say generally speaking, on the luxury level multifamily, you are overall attracting the bookends, I call it, which are either younger individuals, singles or couples, or folks that are downsizing away from houses. So the operational impact or the student impact is not that large in a luxury multifamily, and the numbers bear it out. If you look at the different projects from actual numbers, it's anywhere from, I think I've seen as high as 5% of units have school-aged children. And so we'll definitely work with the school district on that, but there's some other things we need to discuss with them.
And that would match some of the apartments that we looked at, the luxury, like over in the Longview area and up north that we looked at in our tour last year.
And I hate to generalize, but overall, the 2 bookends is their main target market or the main pool of tenants.
That's excellent to hear.
One of the things that we do when we meet with these folks is that is one of the primary questions that we ask them: what's the impact on our other taxing districts, in particular the school district? And judging from their prior projects that they've had that are similar to the ones they're presenting to us, just like Matt said, they can give us really close estimates as to what kind of impact that's going to be, and that's what we try to share with Dr. Monsis on a regular basis as well.
If I may add, I would say, from my perspective as a longtime professional educator, we would certainly want to attract permanent residents or residents that are moving here for a time in their career before they get transferred to another region.
Or potentially elevate and get older and buy a home here.
Exactly,
that's what we're
exactly.
hoping for.
Right, but certainly less transient residents as opposed to permanent or residents that are here for a while that are hoping to transition to a home before they have children.
And that's generally what happens here, is that the rent rates are pretty close to the mortgage rates here in Raymore, mortgage loan amount. So it's pretty on par. So you try and attract that audience to your community, then they'll stay. Because now they're going to look for a single-family house in that community because they love it so much, and that their kids, let's say, love the school district, or they just love the area.
Mr. Barber.
Thank you. And Mr. Tapp, great report. I know you would have liked to give us more information, I could tell. It would have been easy for you to say, my report is wait till second quarter, but you didn't. Appreciate giving us what you can. As I read through the packet, one area caught my attention, and this is, I didn't realize it had a name, this Heritage Professional Park site. And I know we've talked about that area, and apparently there was some interest there, and that interest has waned. And so is there any plan B there, C, D, or F, or what can you give us on that?
Yes, there was an interested party that was looking to acquire it and redevelop the site. I will say that I believe, and Mr. Catarat's more than welcome to chime in, but I believe the Community Development Department is working with the property owner on the next step. Ideally, we find the right fit, whether it's a developer or a business that wants to build a bigger building and then lease out the rest of the building, where they would redevelop the site. That's my goal, is to attract a developer or investors that would scrape the ground and then redevelop the site to office or medical. Retail commercial will not happen there. A, it's not zoned for that, and B, we received a lot of feedback from the neighbors that they don't want to see retail commercial there, and I agree.
Yeah, go ahead.
And just one other comment. I caught this too. It always catches my attention, but mentioning 55 and seniors always gets me kind of hair standing up on the back of my head. I wish there could be another term for that. So just as you're putting things together, I don't know what they could do, but calling it 55 and senior living is, I find that troubling.
And when you get to be my age, you get past it. Don't worry about it, Kev.
I will find a different term, sir.
I guess I do have a comment, a question. First of all, Mr. Tapp, bravo. Having been on the council, not as long as Kevin or Sonia, but they will remember the days of our economic development report. When we got it, consisted of a developer called and asked for a $75,000 warehouse. We have no such warehouse. Mm-hmm. Now we've got handouts. We're actually going out and engaging. We've got the mayor and city staff involved. This is great, and you're at phase 2, and the next step is when you come to us and go, hey, we're building an Olive Garden. So this is really good stuff.
You had to say the OG, didn't you?
He had to go there.
I liken your attitude much to my children when they were younger on the night before Christmas, and they're going through their list of everything they hope to get. So well done. I did have a question. I don't know if you can fully answer this, but as you went over the Gateway project, which is behind the car wash and behind my house, you mentioned, I don't remember your specific term, maybe securing an entertainment user. When you say that, do you mean they're ready to move, they're waiting on a developer, and then they'll move in?
It's a good point. Yes, for clarification, we have acquired a very firm commitment from that user. They want to pursue the next iteration of what they do. So now we're trying to figure out the best developer and the best way to approach the project.
Outstanding work, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Anyone else? I will tell you that in our secret squirrel meetings, or whatever you want to call them, the one developer that heard from the three of us was extremely grateful that he saw this breath of fresh air coming from our group. They hadn't heard that from other communities. In our preparation, in our excitement, and the way we have, the way the city, and this is a pat on the back for you guys, when we had those community conversations, it established not a master growth plan, but certainly a strategic plan that would allow us to share with these folks what our community wants in the community and is supported by the elected officials. And when they hear both those elements working in that direction, they get excited as well. And so it was a very refreshing meeting to see these folks who want to invest in our community. It's pretty exciting. It really is.
Sure, definitely to echo off of the mayor's comments. As a matter of fact, today we heard from a developer that asked specifically, you know, what is the city council's temperament or temperature towards XYZ, and it's refreshing to say we have a very excited city council. They want to see these type of projects happen, so it definitely greatly assists our efforts, so we appreciate that.
And some on the state council, too.
Yes.
Okay, so if there's nothing else, anyone have anything else? Anything beyond these two reports? Anybody want to bring anything up? If not, I think we need a motion to go into executive session.
Mr. Mayor,
She'll say.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we go into executive session to discuss litigation matters.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Motion been made and seconded to move into executive session for litigation matters. Could I please have the roll call?
Councilman Townsend?
Yes.
Councilman Kellogg?
Yes.
Councilman Berenson?
Yes.
Councilman Burke?
Yes.
Councilman Barber?
Yes.
Councilman Holman?
Yes.
Councilman Abdelgawad? Very
Yes.
good, Mayor.
Okay, we'll move into executive session. Thank you.
Matt? Excellent.
Thank you, sir.